Why do I always end up with the cheater? And our guest was Kelli Slavic. So we have her back today. And before I bring her on, I always like to remind you of what behind the 90 means. Behind the 90% of what we go through in life is about our past, and only 10% is about the here and now, making it very important that we explore a person's 90% because excuse me, because the 90% represents a person's story. And I am so happy to have Kelli back because she was sharing her story, and we always know that there's more to what we see on the surface. There's so much more to what we see, and that's that 90%. So Kelli is here talking about her 90%. And we all know when you end up in a relationship and a person cheats on you, we know it's not about you. It's all about that person and what they have going on. Because when a person is ready to end a relationship and they're ready to move on to someone else, they should be able to just say that. In the ideal world, that's what should happen. But that doesn't always happen. People sneak around and cheat and just make poor decisions. So Kelli is here today. She wants to. I asked her to come back because it's such a um, important story that I did not want to rush it. So again, welcome back, Kelli. Thank you so much for coming back. Why do I always end up with cheaters?
Thank
Yeah.
you.
So our last episode, I think we ended talking about your first marriage, and you ended that relationship. So now you've ended that relationship. You have been married 19 to what age?
Um, we were together from like 19 to 35.
To 35.
Yeah.
So now you're a single mom because you
Yeah.
said you had 3 kids,
Yeah.
correct?
So I have 3 kids.
So how did that
I
work?
believe they were preteenish, ages. And I'm a single mom now, and I'm trying to figure it out. Um, and I'm in a different kind of stress,
Okay.
from the marriage, the stress of the marriage. But now I have to be, mom, manager, provider, everything, because when he realized that there was, no chance of us reconciling, he moved to California,
Wow.
and basically never really came back. So financially and every other way, I had to do everything. So I have these 3 kids, and they're in elementary and middle school, and they're taking trips and playing sports and doing all this stuff, and I just had to figure out how to manage all that. So I got into what I would say is a survival mode. You know, I was trying to make sure that I was strong for them.
Okay.
I was so focused on being strong and making sure that they knew that everything was going to be okay. Like that I could handle it all. You know, um, we didn't have a lot of money, but they didn't really go without. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes they'll look back, they'll say, "Mom, I didn't realize we were that poor." And I said, "Well, we weren't poor. We had money. We just we didn't have a lot after the bills,
Mhm.
So, but somehow I managed, right? And I do look back and I'll say, if you add up the numbers, they don't add up right.
No, add up right.
But we made it, and so that's where I always teach my kids. You have to have faith in God, because um, he will take care of
He
you.
provided.
He provided, and
Yeah.
it's I wrote it on paper one time, because I remember how much money I made and kind of sort of what my main bills were, and yeah, it didn't add up,
And
but
you were making it. You were
we
able
were
to put
making
food
it.
on the table, shelter,
Yep.
clothes. Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
impressive. So he wasn't helping.
No,
Okay.
he wasn't helping. And it's funny that I would say this is when uh, I can look back and see God showing up in my life.
Mm.
However, I had stopped going to church during that. It's like a 3-year period. I didn't want to go to church, and it was because I just felt like I was, taught a lot about, sin, and it's separating you from God and
Mm.
things like that. And I thought, you know what? I just can't live up to it. I just can't live up to that standard that religion, I would say, had taught me. This is how I should be, and this is how I should act, and these are the things I should do or not do. And
Mm-hmm.
I felt pressured, and like I just couldn't live up to it. So I stopped. I stopped going for a
Wow.
few years. And then I met a lady at like Zumba or something,
Mm-hmm.
right? She was a pastor's wife, and we made friends. And she asked me one day, I was going to get some test results or something. And I know now she used this as an excuse, but she said, "Is it okay if I call you later and, ask how it went?" And I said, "Sure." And she called me and she said, "If you died, do you know you would go to heaven?" And I said, "No, I don't know that."
Mm.
And she said, "Why? Didn't you get saved and, weren't you Christian?" And I said, yeah, I got saved and I was a Christian, and
Mm-hmm.
she said, "Why?" And I said, I don't know, because I just don't know if I can live up, to this standard of, what in my mind it was supposed to look like, right? I was trying to be perfect, which is probably why I was so desperately didn't want to get a divorce, because I'm like, God doesn't like divorce, Kelli. Um, and I think that's where the infidelity came in, is that it was biblically in the Bible. I could read for myself that was grounds for divorce.
Yeah.
So I was like captive in this feeling stuck in this marriage, because, I didn't want to disappoint God.
Yeah.
Right. Um, and so again, I stopped going for a few years, and made me feel like I didn't feel guilty if I did something wrong or whatever. So I'm having this discussion with this lady, and, I'm kind of explaining to her my thought process. And she said, "I just want to tell you that you don't have to be perfect. God's love, for us is a gift.
Right.
There's nothing you can do to earn it or
Mm-hmm.
keep it, or give it away, right? You just," and she explained to me really about, Jesus dying for us.
Yeah.
And I knew that my heart was right, and that, I was trying,
Yeah.
that maybe I wasn't always giving the best results, but that my heart was in the right place. And that I finally felt like Kelli, God knows that.
Mm-hmm.
You can't earn his love. He loves you unconditionally.
Can't do enough.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it was
grace.
so freeing to me.
Yeah.
To finally be able to say, well, I can do that. I can love God and I can try, right?
Yeah.
I can come to him as I am and let him change me,
Mm-hmm.
right? Through the Holy Spirit or whatever, and not worry about being perfect and then coming to him. I was trying to bring perfect me
Wow.
to God.
And where do you think, because did someone tell you that you had to be perfect?
Well, I don't know that anyone ever used the word perfect, but I feel like I heard a lot of how sin can separate you from God.
Yeah.
And the first time I got saved, it was in fear, because they said, if you leave this church and you die, do you know you'll go, will you go to heaven or will you go to hell?
Okay.
And I was scared. I was like, I don't want to go to hell.
Right. Yeah, so you did it out of fear.
So I did it out of fear.
Yeah.
So this is like 10 years later now. I'm like 40 years old, and this lady is explaining to me,
yeah,
like, no, you don't have to be perfect.
No.
Come as
That's
you
why
are.
we have Jesus.
He loves you.
Yeah.
And when I learned to think of it as a parent, there's nothing my kids can ever do to make me stop loving them.
Yeah.
And they do all kinds of stuff I don't like.
Right.
All kinds of stuff I don't agree with.
Yeah.
But I will never, ever, ever change.
Right. You will never stop loving them.
No,
right.
Never change how much I love them. And I realized that that's how God feels about it.
Absolutely.
So when I realized that's how he felt, I was able to fully, freely, guilt-free turn my life back around and go back to church, but feel good about it. Yeah. Wasn't doing anything in fear or guilt. And I feel like I was living my life before that in fear and guilt and Now I was just free, felt such peace.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. So you're getting back on track with, you're adjusting to being a single mom.
Hmm.
Things are happening. God was providing. You're working
Yeah.
and not really even trying to get him to be a part. Were you trying to get him to be a part of the kid's life?
No.
Because I know that was very important to you to have him be there. So now that he's not there,
In the beginning,
mhm,
I can have a temper, so every now and then I'd call him and
mhm.
tell him what I thought of him. Um, and then at some point, I just realized that they were doing better without him in this life, right?
Mm,
I had realized that what I thought was a terrible thing that he did by leaving had been a blessing, because our house was peaceful after that,
yeah,
you know, and compared to what was going on before. I mean, I'm a
yeah,
single mom with 3 teenagers, so,
yeah.
but peaceful compared to what was happening
Mhm.
in that toxic environment. So
Okay.
I realized that he would have never let me move on with my life, as in being in another relationship,
Mhm.
because he couldn't handle that. There was no back
Mm,
and forth of whether the kids could go with him or not, because, I'm trying to decide if he's in or out of addiction, and it was just like, it was finally just such a relief. It really
yeah, to be
was.
free and live your life and not have to worry about, is he going to fall off the wagon?
Yeah.
Wasn't your problem.
Yeah.
But it was nice that you were there for him. But people have to want it more for themselves than you want it for them.
Yeah. And
So,
yeah, I was finally learning to do that.
yeah, he has to want it.
When I first left, he had came in and damaged all the things in my home. And so, of course, the police got called, and a police officer handed me a domestic violence card.
Mm,
And I said, "What's that for? He's never hit me."
mhm,
And she said, "Do me a favor and go once." She said, "They'll give you free counseling and they'll
mhm,
provide counseling for your children." So, of course, I went, not for myself, because I wanted the counseling for my children.
mhm.
And the lady said to me, "You have to learn to love yourself, more than him." And I was offended. I was offended because I thought, I
Right,
love myself. I'm not some, pathetic, insecure woman who doesn't love herself. I was
right. Who are
so
you talking to?
offended.
Right.
Yeah. Who are you
Hmm.
talking to? So she showed me the domestic abuse
The
wheel.
power and control will.
I was everything on the
Are you
wheel.
serious?
All of them. I think there was 10 at the time, and I was
Hmm.
everything on the wheel except for that he physically didn't put his hands
He,
on me
so
ever.
he never put his hands on
Never
you.
put his hands on me. Um, in fact, this is a hard one for me to talk about, but I had eventually had put my hands on him.
Did you? Okay. Okay. Hmm.
So
Yeah, I mean,
I didn't want to hear that I was being abused,
right.
but the verbal and the mental, and
Yeah.
because when he was high, he'd call me names.
Yeah.
So there was, I thought, wow, it was eye opening to me. So um it was such a growing time for me,
Hmm.
being free of that, losing the guilt of I'm not perfect, I'm never going to be able to walk this Christian life, and learning that I was living in abuse.
Yeah, it was an abusive relationship. Yeah, a lot of times people feel like abuse is only the hitting.
It is, yeah.
Well, he's
And
not
that's what I
hitting
thought.
me, or she's not hitting me. Well, it's
And
abuse.
I can say, my mom I'd watched my mom be physically abused.
Mm,
So to me, I wasn't abused.
okay.
He had never put a hand on me. So um, I finally realized there was just so much that I wasn't getting,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
I want to say that was my first adult experience
Hmm.
with, counseling or therapy, and my mental health.
Yeah.
I didn't really pursue it much after that, but it was an awakening
Hmm.
point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So now you're adjusting. You got your relationship, like you said. You feel like the kids. from your vantage point, you feel like the kids are, thriving and doing better now that
Hmm.
he's not there.
Yeah.
Um, and you're in church, back in church.
Yeah.
When did you start dating again?
It took about 3 years.
Okay.
About 3 years. I, uh, I, I, it's so funny. It's hard for me to talk about certain things from that point of view then,
Mm-hmm.
because I've learned so much now,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's like two different points of view,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Like me in that moment, what I thought was happening,
Mm-hmm.
right? And healthy, mentally healthy, healing version of me is like, when I start to tell the story, she's over here saying that ain't what happened at all.
Who the?
The healing version of me over here, right, is kind of telling, when I'm getting ready to tell you the story of, my next relationship after that, I feel like the healed version of me is kind of like going, that's not really happened though, because I can see it from two different points of view,
Oh my gosh.
right?
Yeah.
Like I see that me, like what I thought was happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then there's the healed me that is like, but that wasn't it at all.
Yeah. Well,
It's strange because it kind of sometimes makes it difficult, because I'm like, how do I explain it from
mm.
both
Yeah,
viewpoints?
but based on where you were at the time, that was the reality.
It was my reality.
You
Yeah.
hadn't gone through it.
Right.
So Kelly at 19 to 30,
Yeah.
granted that I'm sure there was a lot of, you know, mental growing and
Mm-hmm.
maturity. But it's not again until you get that full scope and the full ben- well, I want to say benefit is when you step outside of that relationship and you want to approach things differently and see, the things that you may have done, what he did, or what have you. But yeah, you definitely see it from four lenses,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
do.
You do. So, um, I think what I did after, so my first, my next serious relationship, we, ended up getting married.
And how did you meet this person?
Like, mutual friends
Okay.
introduced us. And, looking back now, I realized that when I got out of my first marriage, when I was, going into the second marriage, I just kept thinking of all the things I didn't want to ever have to deal with again.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't want to, a drug addict. I needed somebody that was stable and responsible.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, somebody who maybe really wasn't much of a drinker, and, those types of things. Like, even though drinking wasn't his, you know, choice of
Mm-hmm.
addiction, or drug of choice, but I was starting to learn this. I had been to so many counseling sessions for him, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was learning so much about addiction that I was really hyper focused on not being with someone like that again.
Right.
But in the meantime, I was missing all these other little small red
Yeah.
flags.
Okay.
It's like, don't want to end up with a drug addict again. So,
So you were so hyper focused
so
on that
hyper focused on
that you were missing other
that I was
things.
missing other
Yeah. Or probably
things.
overlooking it because he's not this and he's not that. Oh, I can deal with that. That's not so bad if you're
Yeah.
starting to compare.
Yeah.
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 Share more.
It's funny. Later on, my second husband wasn't. Well, let me say this. So we're living together. At the time that I meet this lady, who is, kind of reintroduced me to being saved again, but this time really out of a desire to want to be saved and not out of fear.
Yeah.
Well, now we're living together. So I'm like, oh, we shouldn't be living together. I thought I'm going to get my own place. So we had started discussing, like, where is this relationship going? It had been, you know, um, are we going to be engaged? Are we going to get married? Are we, what am I going to get my own place?
But
Whatever.
before you go there, though, what was? Because I know you were saying that when you enter into these relationships, the guys they are just like falling over themselves. They're catering to you. They love you. Was it a love bonding in the second?
No,
How was it
no.
the
It,
startup for the second relationship?
it's funny that you say that too, because I feel like my first husband did that, but my second husband he did not. He was basically just a good, nice guy. There was no love bombing. He didn't do, anything crazy. I think like I felt like he was saving me a little bit from being a single mom.
Mm.
Like,
Okay.
yeah, it was like he was just a nice guy, very responsible. you know, there was just those good character
Yeah.
traits in him that I saw.
Yeah.
He was very calm, very passive. Um, I would say, my ex-husband and I were both very, could be aggressive in an argument. So I remember the first time, my second husband and I had an argument, he said, "Why are you yelling?" And I said, "What do you mean? Why am I yelling? Like I'm mad." And he's like, "Yeah, but you don't have to yell."
So your first husband, that's what we
Yeah, because
take.
we would yell and it was so
He said,
toxic.
"Why are you
Why are you
to
yelling?
say
And I
right?
thought, what's wrong with him?
Don't
And
you
then,
yell?
yeah,
Right. This is how
right,
we talk. This is how
right.
we
This
get
is
our
what
point
you do
across.
when you're mad. You talk real passionate,
You yell, right?
And
That's funny.
he was so calm. He was just like, I mean, okay, you're mad. You don't have to have an argument like that, And I thought,
Okay.
wow, and I felt like he was so good for me in that way. Like he really kept me calm because I, I can be explosive, but I can also get it over. I can get over it real quick too,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you have another explosive person like that has that same personality, it's just, it goes on forever.
Mm-hmm.
With him, I could get real angry, but then because he didn't respond, you know, in an angry way, he would respond in a calm, peaceful way.
Mm-hmm.
It would really bring me down. And I thought, wow, he's so good for me. He really
Yeah.
levels me out. And he's a good example to my kids. And so it's all these things. So there was never no, love bombing or,
Mm-hmm.
no, it was just
What
like,
you saw is what you got with him.
yeah. And I just thought it would just be a good, healthy relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't need all that, like my first husband, you're the most beautiful girl I've ever seen, and I'll never love anybody like I love you. And, I didn't need all that. I thought,
Right.
skip all that.
Right.
That didn't work out. Let's try something new.
Right.
Let's just try a nice, calm,
stability.
respectful, stability.
Yeah, well, stability. Let's build this foundation.
Yeah.
And it sounds like he started early on saying, like, this is how we should engage. These are the rules of engagement here.
Yeah.
Let's not yell and scream at each other.
No.
And who would deny that? Who would say, well, no, I want to yell. I want to scream. I mean,
right? And I'm thinking, what a great environment for my kids to grow up in versus this toxic, marriage that they had been through before.
And no one had said that to you before.
No one had ever said that. So that was just like, what? Everybody I saw argued. That's how they argued.
Yeah, they have conflicts. You argue.
Yeah. I don't
get out with your words.
I had at that point not really seen a good relationship or marriage.
Okay. So
I didn't have anything to base off of. And so I'm like, okay, this is stable and calm. And, but after looking back now, the commitment wasn't there with him. He really didn't have a desire to get married. And, when I first met him, I didn't want more children. And for him, it wasn't a deal breaker. That's what he said. Okay. But then, you go further into the relationship and he's like, well, I don't know. I might want to have kids. Right. And so, and I'm thinking, I do not want more kids.
Your kids were they were teenagers,
We're starting to become teenagers.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, no way. I had so much fear of being stuck as a single parent again. And I remember saying to him, I can't have another kid. There's no way I could survive being a single mom again. I don't want to do that.
So you were just anticipating that being.
I was anticipating that was a possibility.
That's a possibility.
Then it was a risk I wasn't willing to take. So we had, come to an agreement that wasn't a deal breaker for him. He went back to, he was okay with not having kids and, was enjoying things with my kids. And then I just, and then me feeling like I wanted to set a good example for my kids and be married and just not keep being in this, living together relationship. And we kind of had a discussion. It was a very unromantic, decision. He took me to pick out a ring.
Mm.
And then one day he just, it was his birthday, and he waited till everyone left, and he came in the living room, and he just got down on one knee and said, "Will you marry me?"
How far into the relationship had you been?
We're at like 3 years now.
Oh, you're 3 years. Okay.
But it took him 3 years, and looking back, it was a I don't want to lose her for him.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, because I was saying that I was thinking about getting my own place.
Mm-hmm.
We had been saving up when we got together. The girls and I moved into his home.
Mm-hmm.
So we thought, okay, we'll get a home together, with more room and things like that. And I thought, do I really want to buy a house with someone I'm not married to?
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
so I started, questioning those things. And I had decided that, I said, I think I'm going to get my own place.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was it. He asked me to marry him because he didn't want me to leave. It was kind of like, I don't want to break up.
Okay. He knew that was going to keep you around.
Yeah.
Just to put a ring on it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
And for me, I guess that was acceptable.
Okay. But looking back.
No,
Right.
that's not acceptable at all.
Yeah.
I had no value in my own worth then.
Okay. So we should marry for what?
We should, oh.
What should we marry for?
Well, I remember coming to you and you saying to me one time, what makes you feel valuable in a relationship? Questions like that. And I didn't know the answers. I had no idea what I was looking for. I only knew what I wasn't looking for.
Okay.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I felt like I kept doing. I would have a failed relationship, and then I would say, well, that's because he was a drug addict. So I would blame that. And then I knew, okay, next time I know the signs of a drug addict now. So I'm going to make sure I don't end up with a drug addict again. It was never about what I wanted, what I deserved, what made me feel valued or cared for in a relationship, right?
Okay.
So I didn't know what I was looking for. I was just taking what someone was offering me.
Wow. And you were going based on a feeling,
Mm-hmm.
right? You knew what you didn't want
because didn't want.
What you were exposed to with your first husband.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a good marker, right? That's a good baseline. Like, I don't want to deal with that. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I mean, I think you can't fault yourself for knowing what you know. That's all you knew. In terms of there was nothing else instilled in you as it relates to the quality of a person that should have Kelli's time and attention.
Right. I wasn't taught any different.
Mm-mm.
My mom came from a very, poor. Basically, her mom was an alcoholic. Her dad left. She ended up in foster care.
Okay.
So she was doing her best as a parent, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And so there, she just thought as a parent is as long as I love my kids and I never give them up, right? Because she so that she didn't give up.
Mm-hmm.
That was her focus, right? And then she was abused in her marriage. So then my focus was not to be physically abused.
So you weren't being physically abused.
So I ended up with a drug addict. So now I'm like, okay, I need to find I'm not going to be physically abused, and I'm not going to be with a drug addict.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I wasn't. I don't think I was looking for anything more.
That's real, Kelli.
What I realized later, and a lot of deep therapy, is that I didn't think I was worth more. I didn't think that I was, worth the kind of love that I know now I'll be expecting from someone.
That's right.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So you get married to your second husband, and as you're approaching the wedding day, was it a long engagement?
Just about a year. We had been living together for 3, so it was like a year.
Yeah.
The next year we got
Yeah.
married, so no.
So leading up to it, did you feel like you said that he married you because, like, from what you're saying, is that he didn't want to lose you. So leading up, did you feel good about that? Did you feel, oh, he wants to keep me at that age, at that time, and knowing what you knew? Um, did you feel good about that?
Well, let me go back because I don't. When I say that he married me because he didn't want to lose me, I don't think I was acknowledging that at the time we're getting married. I'm
Oh,
saying that from a point of view today.
okay, got
You
it.
know?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I just. So no, I thought, okay, he seemed happy as could be,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I was happy, and the kids were happy. You know,
Mm-hmm.
everybody was happy. My mom was happy. I'm not with this, nice, clean cut, responsible, guy who treated me good. It wasn't that he
Yeah.
treated me good. He treated me good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what I didn't see is I wasn't it for him.
You weren't it for him. Explain
He
that.
really, really, he told me one day, finally, he said, I think I got married because he said, I knew you were a good woman. I knew you were a good wife. I knew you'd be a good mother. He said, and I really thought that I would never find any better.
Mm.
And it took me a long time to understand that. It was that he really wasn't in love with me,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like we were both settling for something. We were both feeling,
Both.
he was like, well, what if he didn't want to risk losing me for fear he wouldn't find that
Someone.
again, the good qualities that I had.
Yeah.
And same for me. I thought, well, he's got all these great qualities,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Um,
So what didn't you were there red flags in that relationship that would have caused you not to marry him? I mean, it could seem like everything lined up pretty nicely.
the red flag with him is that I think that when we had first started living together, um, in the very not we weren't living together that long, and he had already expressed some concerns that maybe that was the mistake, us moving in together. And so
Okay.
I just had kind of said, okay, well, give me a minute, let me get my self together. And I had intended on moving out.
Okay.
And then I don't know what happened after that, right? It was just like
You moved out?
I didn't. We just kind of got past that moment,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think that's where we were both kind of like, well, he's thinking, but she's a
Mm-hmm.
great person and she
Mm-hmm.
treats me great, and
Mm-hmm.
she takes care of the house and she packs my lunch, and he
Right.
loved the way I took care of him.
Yeah.
That's what he loved, right?
Yeah.
He loved the way I took care of him, and I loved the way he took care of my kids and I,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
Which sounds good,
Mm-hmm.
right? It sounds like, well, that's not so bad. But I wasn't his true heart's desire. What he
Mm.
really, really wanted. He really wanted to somebody who, maybe didn't have kids yet.
Mm.
He wanted to start a family of his own, and he wanted a family,
Mm-hmm.
and I think he thought, well, maybe this would fulfill what, right, because I had kids. So we got married and he felt like a family. And I don't think he had any bad intentions, as
Right.
neither did I. He just
Mm-hmm.
really thought, okay, this should probably make me happy.
Right.
Here's a family already made, and that's what I've been wanting,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Um, but then we get to a point, we get married, and we're not even married a year, and he's cheating.
A year into the marriage.
Yeah,
How did you find out?
Facebook. As cliche
Oh.
as that sounds,
Wow.
he left it open or something one day, and he had been talking to a girl, and they had went and met at the batting cages, and he went over her sister's house and watched a baseball game, and
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah. So you find that out. You guys are married at this
we're
time.
married. We've been married almost a year.
Married almost a year. Did you confront him?
hmm
What did you say?
Um, I told him I found it. He basically said that nothing more than that had happened. Um, that he was feeling unhappy,
Mm-hmm.
and that he had realized, a year after we got married or whatnot, that
Mhm.
he really wanted a family of his own.
Okay.
He said, I really, my life is not bad, but it's not the way I thought it would turn out.
Mm.
He said he really thought, that he'd always would have a kid of his own. Um, and, you know,
Okay.
so that was a discussion. Um, and, he had said that nothing more had happened than maybe it was like an inappropriate friendship.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing had happened physically. Um, and so I forgave him. We worked through it. And as sane as this sounds, we decided to try to have a baby.
Okay. And how old are you at this time?
I'm like 40.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
about 40, which
Okay.
was part of the issue for me.
Mm-hmm.
I remember saying, I don't want to have a baby, in my 40s.
Yeah. So did you think that was going to fix it?
Yeah. We both thought this is going to fix it. This is what's wrong. This is what's wrong
This
with
is
our
why
marriage. This is why I'm
stepping
unhappy.
out,
This
or
is why, yeah.
I'm seeking other relationships inappropriately, and
And
I'm
so I'm
married.
thinking, am I a good wife if I deny what I felt, his heart desires? Like, he was really desired. And I knew he would be a good dad. I knew it. I'd seen him with my kids. I'd seen him with other people's kids. I just something, and I thought he'd be such a good dad.
Yeah. And you wanted, and you, like you said, you went in knowing that you didn't want to have kids, but
I definitely knew.
but
But I'm learning about myself that I let people bend my boundaries.
mm, yeah,
I do.
you don't want to be abandoned, right?
Right. I didn't want him
Back
to leave
then,
me.
I
Exactly.
want you to leave me.
Don't leave me.
Don't leave
Don't leave
me.
me. We can work this out. It's not. So then I talked myself into, um, you know, you don't have to worry. He's going to be a great dad. You're not going to have all the other issues, you had the previous time. Um, maybe this is your, I told myself, maybe this is your chance to really raise a child,
Mm.
right? With someone,
He was trying to make it
with someone,
fit.
yeah, was it,
Mm-hmm.
and so
To justify
I
it.
finally
Yeah.
said to him, I said, you know what, maybe this is my chance then to really just raise a child with someone and just actually get to enjoy motherhood, right? I was so stressed out
With your
that
friend.
although I thought I was being a good mom, I look back and, I've had to apologize to my kids and say,
Mm.
I'm so sorry that you had a mom that was in such a survival mode.
Mm.
I'm so
Yeah.
sorry.
Wow. Okay.
I
That's
wish I
honest.
wish I could parent
It's
you
real
all over
talk.
again
Wow.
as the
That's
healed version of myself.
wow. That's good, Kelly.
And I feel like that's helped them a lot,
Yeah.
you know?
To understand, because like you said, it's so easy for kids to blame themselves, like why they didn't get what they needed,
Hmm.
for a period of time with
Right.
said
And my kids
parent.
would say, I've mentioned in the last episode, they'd say, you're like like they would say to me, as they're getting older and they're learning how to express things and we talk about, they'd say, Mom, you're like a robot.
Yeah.
You're so strong, but you weren't sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
You weren't sensitive. And I thought, I don't even know what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
What does being sensitive look like? Because when they were little, we were, still in a good place. So, it was cuddly and lovey and huggy and whatever. And so I thought I nurtured them and, gave them what they needed in a loving way.
Mm-hmm.
And as they got older, I was just like stern and strict and
Mm-hmm.
worried about their choices. So, you're not allowed to do this or that. I just wanted to be strict. I wanted to make sure everything was handled well. I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
make sure they had everything they needed. But what I was missing the part where they just needed me to love them and be soft.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, soft was a weakness.
Mm.
Soft wasn't going to get me through
You got stuff
survival.
to do. You got stuff to get
That's right.
done. You're, like you said, in survival
Yeah.
mode.
So,
So you decided to have a child with
yes.
him
Yeah.
because you felt like that's going to fix
This
it.
is what he needs.
Yeah.
And, and, and I can't get a divorce again.
Right. We can't do that again.
Can't do that again.
Don't want to duplicate
Mm-mm.
my childhood.
Nope. Not get to do. Nope.
No, we're gonna make it work. Saw him kind of entertaining a relationship, but This is
blame
the reason why he was doing
took the
it.
blame. I took
I
the
can see why he
blame.
was doing
Yeah,
that.
because I
So,
didn't want to have a baby, and
so now,
he,
now that I'll have one,
yep,
that'll
we're gonna
stop.
have one.
It'll
Yep,
stop it.
yep. So we try. Doesn't we don't get I don't get pregnant right away. I'm like 41 years old now, I think, and so I say to him one day, after it had only been like 6 months, but I'm like, are you gonna be okay? Like we're really trying, but if this, are you gonna be okay if it doesn't work out? Because then I'm thinking, okay, I'm trying, but if I can't have a baby, he's gonna abandon me, right?
Right.
And he said, no, no, no. I just, it was like he made it sound like as long as we tried, he was okay with that. So we try, and then we kind of thought this. I don't know if it's gonna happen. So
Mhm.
I want to say we kind of like gave up on the idea and settled that it just wasn't. I was probably too old. That's what I thought.
Okay.
Okay, and then a little time goes by, and I can tell he's he's drifting again.
You can tell. What were the signs that he was drifting again?
He was just a very happy-go-lucky guy, and I could tell he wasn't. He was getting down and like in his own maybe depression.
Hmm.
I don't want to speak for him, but
Yeah.
that's what it seemed like. Um, I just could tell there was something like that happy-go-lucky guy. He wasn't acting like it,
Yeah.
and he was distant. There wasn't a lot of I loved yous, and he was avoiding me a little bit. Just some whatever. But so then one day I think I might be pregnant. Okay. And I remember I was thinking, like, I'm going to wait till the weekend, when I'm home. I'm not, going to work or whatever. And then if I don't, have my period, I'm gonna take a pregnancy
Mhm.
test. And you know, he had come home one night. He started that talk again
About having a baby.
about he's afraid that he had, like, that he was settling, right?
Mhm.
Started that same kind of like lingo of, I just really thought I'd have a baby of my own. And he's, and that kind of talk was happening again. So I didn't say anything to him about, me thinking that I might be pregnant. And so actually, when I found I was pregnant, he was not the first person I told, because
Right.
I called my best friend and I said, "You're not going to believe this, but I'm pregnant." She, of course, she's overjoyed because she knew he had been trying. And I said, no. She said, "Did you tell him yet?" And I said, "No." And she said, "What do you mean? You called me before you told your husband?" And I said, "I don't think the conversation's going to go the way you think it's going to."
Oh wow. Okay.
And she said, "What do you mean?" And so I was kind of telling her like what had been going on, and that conversation started again. And she knew about the infidelity and whatever. So I told him, I said, I went to the doctors and I, you know, got a test, and I came home and I said, I need to talk to you. And I said, I'm pregnant. And he looked at me and he said, I don't think this is a good time to have a baby.
Mm.
He had already found someone else.
Oh boy.
I didn't know yet still.
You didn't know.
I didn't
But when
know.
he said that,
He
Kelli.
said that. I just felt like, here we go again. He's going to leave. You're going to be the single mom.
Oh, Kelli.
Um, I just couldn't believe it. I really could not. I can't say I 100% couldn't believe it because, like I said, I was getting those red flags again with the conversations, that he was going back into that mode of,
Mhm.
not being happy. And, um, but it wasn't there. I was already pregnant when he started that conversation. You know what I mean? Again, I just
Yeah.
wasn't fully aware yet. And then, um, and then I thought, no, I'm not pregnant. Like we tried all this time, and
Yeah.
I didn't get pregnant. So
Mhm.
I really, yeah. He basically told me that now wasn't a good time.
So what does that mean?
I said that. I said, "What does that mean? Are you telling me not to have this baby?" And he said, "Yes." He said, "Yes." That he didn't want me to have it.
Oh boy.
So I, being now a woman of God and feeling this faith and knowing God had carried me through those, years of financial difficulty. Through all that, I thought, I prayed for this baby. I prayed for
For a
it.
second chance, right?
And now you're asking me not to have it. There was an nothing in me that I just, there was no way.
That you would not have that baby.
There was no way. I asked for her. I prayed, and God answered my prayers. And it made me feel like I would be spitting in his face.
Mm.
For me to beg you for something.
It is not convenient now.
Yeah.
So, okay.
So I had went and slept in another room, basically started sleeping in another room. I basically just thought, okay, here we go again. You're going to be on your own, but time to soldier up.
So did he, when he says this is not a good time, did he say that he was seeing someone else?
No.
He didn't say that?
No.
Okay.
No. He never said that.
Did you?
He never told me. I had to find out on my own, like, after she was born. So, yeah, at this time, I have no idea that there's someone else. I'm in shock. Can't figure out why he's saying this now, right? But, for a short period, I just thought, okay, you're going to do this by yourself, and you've done it before, and you can do it again. And I had much more faith then than, I'd had before. And, that lasted a very short time. And he came one day and said, can we talk? And I said, yes. And he said, I'm sorry. I love you and I love this baby and I want to try to make it work.
Okay. So how was he throughout the pregnancy though?
Again, he was okay.
Okay.
But there were red flags during the pregnancy too that I thought, like one day I just had a craving for something and it was White Castle. Mm-hmm. And he just got a new truck. Right. And I'm thinking he is just going to spoil me and take, I'm pregnant with this baby that he's always wanted. And, we're at an older age and right. And so I'm just thinking that this is how I thought he was going to treat me. And I remember one day saying, I'm having a craving for White Castles. Mm-hmm. And he said, he said, you are not eating that smelly stuff in my new truck. And I remember just like, and I'm not a sensitive person, but I'm pregnant. I just remember turning and pretending I'm looking out the window and I just kind of teared up because I'm thinking, this is not how I was expecting this was going to go. Right. So there were these red flags of, it wasn't that I don't want to say he treated me bad. Yeah. He treated me okay. Right. And he acted excited to have the baby. But there was just these little things once in a while that I thought, I'd heard stories of, a man telling me when his wife was pregnant, he went to her favorite restaurant to get her this soup she was craving and they were closing. And he told the guy, how much money will it get me to get you to stay here and make this soup? Right? Oh, boy. Yeah. And so I'm thinking that's the kind of husband I was going to get, right? Because he wanted this baby so bad.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, but I know why now. Okay. He had checked out. He was checked out when I said I was pregnant. And he was just kind of faking it.
I feel like he felt like trapped.
I feel like he thought that he should stay there through the pregnancy. I don't believe he had any intention of staying, past that. But he thought, well, she's pregnant. I don't want to speak for him. Maybe he thought maybe sincerely when he said, I love you and let's try, maybe he really did try. Mm-hmm. And he just, but you can tell. I could tell that something was, but I can't, what am I going to do now? Right. I'm in it.
You're in it.
I'm in it. I was trying to make the best of it I could. Plus it was embarrassing. Mm-hmm. I remember when she was first born and I remember during the birth, it was like he was kind of sitting over on the sideline, like, he was waiting, but he wasn't in it, emotionally in it with me, right? Yeah. He was present, but he wasn't physically present, but emotionally he wasn't present. Yeah. And I knew it. Again.
Yeah. So at what point did you find out that he was having an affair? So you have, let me go back a little bit. So you have the baby.
Yeah.
So he's with you on
Yep.
and off during your pregnancy, or he's with you?
No, he's with me. He's with
Then,
me. It's just the treatment was kind of
yeah.
off and
So you
on,
have the
shaky. Yeah.
baby. You have the baby. Then what happened?
So, I have the baby. We come home. I'm thinking we're really trying, right? We're really going to try to make this work. She was born in February, so March, April, May. I remember we got into a fight. She's 3 months old now. We got into an argument, and it was a very childish argument.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember he took his wedding ring off,
Mm-hmm.
and he threw it at me,
Mm-hmm.
and then he left the house, and he didn't come home all night. Right?
Oh boy.
Again, healed me looks back and says, he went to be with her.
Yeah, he wanted a reason to.
He wanted a reason.
Pick a fight.
It's like taking your ring off does not make you divorced.
Right.
But that was like his,
Sign.
Not like that. Right. To him it was.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm
read between
free.
the lines.
Yeah.
I'm about to go do what I want to do.
I'm about to go do what I want to do. Yeah. And so he didn't come home all night. And I said, where were you? And he said he slept at a truck stop. Mm-hmm. I didn't believe him.
Right.
I mean, I'm not gullible, but it's hard too when you suspect something's going on, but you don't have the proof yet.
Yeah.
You almost feel stuck in it. At least I did. It's like, how do I just leave on a hunch?
Yeah, you want to know that
I wanted to know that I know that I know that I know. I had to see it for my own eyes. I had to force him to confess before, So I remember that my youngest daughter of my first marriage was graduating when my now daughter, our baby is being born. Mm-hmm. And it's May, and she's about to graduate, and he throws the ring at me. And I remember he came back the next day, and again, I go right into survival mode. And I remember saying to him, I don't know what's going to happen from here, but I'll tell you one thing you're not going to do, and that's leave me here on graduation day to answer a bunch of questions about where my husband is or the father of my newborn baby. That ain't going to happen. Yeah. You will stay here. You will help me through this graduation, and then we will go from there. But until then, you ain't going nowhere.
Right. Excuse me. So did he agree to that?
He said, okay.
Okay.
And at that moment, again, I'm just in survival mode. I got a newborn baby. I'm trying to do a graduation. What you feel like after, your postpartum. I didn't care about anything at that moment. I just wanted to get my daughter through this graduation, her graduation. Her dad is flying back to be at the graduation, so that's another stressor, and I was just overwhelmed. Yeah. So there I go again, survival mode. Kick in, just do what we got to do. Let's make everything happen. No emotion in it. I just shut all emotion off.
Yeah. Right.
And so he did. He helped me with the graduation, helped me, get the house together. We got everything. We got past that, and he didn't leave. So, but the behavior was the same, right? Yeah. He's distant. There's not a lot of affection, the I love yous, the, whatever. And so I had said to him, what do you want to do? Do you want to move out? Do you want to go to marriage counseling? Like, where do we go from here? You're clearly unhappy. Mm-hmm. I don't want to live like this. What now? He said, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about you. That's what he would say. Okay. So then I'm like, do you want to go to marriage counseling? He said no. So that was a big awakening for me when I thought to myself, I had a baby. By the time I had her, I think I was 43.
Okay.
So I'm having a baby at 43 for a man who won't even go to marriage counseling now to try to save it. So I remember saying, I need you to move out. I need you to pack your stuff, and I need you to go.
Because you knew he was, like you said, you knew he had checked out already. Mm-hmm. And you weren't going to like last marriage, you kind of hung around for a
hung
while,
around
just
and hung
trying
around.
to convince, please stay.
Yes.
Yeah, and like you said, this
Let's
is
fix
something
it.
that you were trying to avoid. You're trying to avoid raising a child as a single mom, right? You wanted two parents in a house with your children, with your child.
Right.
That's what you wanted. So, but again, you wasn't going to sacrifice yourself
No,
anymore.
because we're at now probably like a 7-year relationship. By the time,
Wow,
yeah, by
yeah.
the time she's born, and not and right, and I understand that marriages go through things, but I could tell that he wasn't invested in it the way I was. Like I thought, wow, I would have a baby to save this marriage. That's a lifelong
Yeah.
commitment.
Yeah.
And you won't go to marriage counseling?
Yeah.
I was like, I started to know my worth a little bit, right?
Yeah. Get stronger and
Yeah.
wiser. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, I'm not gonna. I settled before, right, to save my kids, and I knew that that was a mistake. I'm not going to do that again.
Right. But
Right?
it's so hurtful, though.
So hurtful.
Oh, you're so hurt. But at this time, you didn't necessarily know that there was someone else.
No.
You didn't know that.
No, I didn't know that at all. Not at all. And you're thinking that ain't going to happen again. I got cheated on. Oh, I'm not going to. That's and I didn't see that with him either. That wasn't his. I just didn't feel like not that you can tell a cheater, but I just was like, he's the responsible, loyal, all these great characteristics that attracted me to him.
But we fast forward. You find out when when you saw that he was checked out. What was the rest of the relationship like? What did
so
it
he
start?
ended up moving out.
Okay.
And it, fast forward to by the end of that year. So she was born in February. We had that fight in May.
Where he took off the ring and threw it at you.
Yep. And then in July, I had asked him to move out. And by December, I found out that he was seeing someone. And when I said, how long have you been seeing this person? He said, since October. So he tried to make it like after he moved out and we were separated, he started seeing someone. But it had been going on the whole time. I was pregnant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you found out, did he admit to it? How did you confront him about it?
Someone told me that he was with someone in October. He said, he admitted that part, but again, he made it, he never said that it started any sooner. Once I realized what this girl's phone number was, I looked on my phone bill and I knew that they were talking. I could see how far back they had been talking.
Yeah. They've been talking for quite a while.
Mm-hmm. There was some other things like he was hiding. He had an Instagram, but I didn't know it. He had a work cell phone. I didn't know it. Okay. But all these things are starting to reveal themselves. Yeah. And once you get separated, then people are happy to tell you what they knew, right? So like people knew he was cheating, but nobody would tell me.
Not like your pastor.
It was men, right? Yeah, it was men, like the boys club. It's like, oh, I'm not going to tell on him. Mm-hmm. So all these men that he was, friends with, nobody told. It's like everybody keeping each other's secrets.
Yeah, no one's gonna. Yeah, his friends aren't gonna tell you.
No. So, but once I knew, and people knew I knew, then they were happy to tell me what, that they knew he was cheating, and that they had seen him with her here or there, or whatever. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that had to be a tough blow. Like you said, repeating. This is what you wanted to avoid.
And here I am again.
Yeah.
Here I am again.
Here I am again. So, Kelli, as you know, we're going to have a part 3.
Yeah. We got one more story to tell.
And still just a tad more to your second marriage, a tad more.
I would like to end with, though, that I wasn't wrong. He's an amazing dad.
Yeah.
He did get remarried to the young lady he had an affair with.
Okay.
She was very young. She was only 22. They did, have a family. They have a daughter and they just had a son. And it's been about 8 years now since, we have been apart and they have obviously been together.
Yeah.
So my daughter's 8, and I just got an apology from her the other day.
You did.
I finally got to tell her how I felt, about her part, and because she was very young. And she said, I was very young. I really only cared about myself.
Wow.
She said, now that I'm older and I have a family, she said, I'm sorry. She said, it's not my proudest moment.
Mm.
Um, and we really made amends. And
That's
it
great,
changed
Kelli.
it changed my respect for her because I had zero respect for her, obviously.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it was hard to co-parent in that environment. And
Yeah.
even like I told you the first time, I want to get along with the woman that's going to be in my child's life
Yes,
because I don't want you taking nothing out on my baby.
that's
Because
right.
you know what? We're really going to have a problem then,
Hmm.
right?
You are absolutely right about that, Kelli.
So I
Yeah.
finally one day had an opportunity for her and I to talk and just kind of tell her, like, she was feeling some frustration from me as well, and I explained to her why. I said,
Yeah.
I'm just going to be honest. I don't respect you.
Mm.
I don't respect you. And I explained to her why.
Mhm.
And I said, and I think because you don't come from a broken home, you don't have enough grace for my daughter. She lives in two different homes,
Yeah.
and you don't show her a lot of grace in that area. You don't understand what she
The
goes through.
challenges, yeah,
You know.
of being in a
But
blended
once I
family.
explained to her where my lack of respect was coming for her and my frustration towards her about how she treated my daughter, she apologized
Mhm.
for the affair, and then she said, maybe you're right. Maybe I could show her more grace, and maybe there are some
Good.
things that I don't understand.
Yeah, yeah.
She's like, I expect her to be the big girl at our house and the example. And I said, but at my house, she's the baby.
Yeah.
And
So
she's got to go
she's
from the baby to
to
the big
big.
sister in two separate houses with different sets of parents, with different rules, half a week here, half a week there.
Yeah.
And it
Oh
was
boy,
really a game changer for all of us.
that is so wonderful
We were
because.
I was able to forgive.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel that resentment no more. I think that it's brought me to a place where I feel like if I have an issue with something that's going on, I can go to her and say it calmly,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And
So, do you feel like what led to that him having an affair, your second husband, was that he didn't want to lose you. You didn't want to lose him. You saw some signs that he, again, then you didn't see it, but looking back on
yes,
it,
of
you
course,
think to yourself, I should not have married him
I
because he
shouldn't.
was settling. He wanted to keep me. He loved me. You're not a settle because you're an amazing woman, but at the same
Right.
time,
But
he
for
wanted kids.
him,
For him,
yeah.
he wanted kids. He wanted that, whatever idealistic thing he had in his mind
Mm-hmm.
about having a wife and kids, that's what he wanted.
Yeah.
And he made an emotional decision to get married, and then
Yeah.
being married, decided found someone that
Younger,
could
right? That
younger
was young enough to start a family
family.
because I was like 20 years older than her.
Wow.
So I'm 43, I think, and I think she was 22,
Yeah, that's young.
you know?
So she can
So
definitely, yeah,
she has plenty of time
yeah.
to, for them to get married and buy a house and start a family. And that was really hard for me.
Oh yeah.
It's really hard for me. I'm like,
Yeah.
really, God?
But we know it wasn't. But again, it wasn't your fault.
No,
This wasn't your fault,
no.
Kelli.
I can't help the fact that I'm 43, not 22.
Yes,
And that's
exactly.
really what it was for him.
Yeah.
He just
Right.
really needed somebody young enough to be able to, even though he was older,
Yeah.
he wanted to be with someone that was younger and had time to do all those things
Yeah.
that he didn't do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, Kelli, thank you so much for sharing that. I'm sure you're helping so many people because we're more alike than different in this world.
Mm-hmm.
People have similar stories, and you think that you're alone, and you're really not. You got a lot of people who have been in relationships and they have been cheated on, and it doesn't feel good.
No.
It doesn't feel good because you don't get married to get divorced. You don't get married you want to be in this exclusive relationship, and you think the person that you're marrying is on the same page. Like, hey, if you're feeling that you want to step outside the relationship, tell me, let me know so I can make a decision for myself. Right? And I think that's what's fair. That's the right thing to do. When you feel like you're checking out, let me know you're checking out so I can make some decisions for myself.
I'd say when you're entering the relationship too, stop trying to pretend to be what that person wants.
Yeah.
Just be your authentic self. I think that sometimes we look at this person and we know what they're looking for, right? And we want to be loved. Yeah. We want to be accepted. We want that. So and I feel like I have found men to do that. They pretend. Me too. I was pretending like, okay, I guess I'm going to have a baby. Not pretending, but you know what I'm saying? Yeah. was trying to be what he wanted instead of who I should have said, I just don't want a baby.
But thank God you had your little baby.
Thank God
you had that little baby.
Which leads me to my story, which I said the one day, how do I take all these things that have happened to me in my life? Because every bad thing that's happened to me, God has turned into something amazing.
Yes.
Okay? Like, I didn't want a baby. That girl is the light of my life now, and you know it.
Oh, my gosh, I do. I do, which is beautiful.
Honestly, she just brings me so much joy, right, in my life. But it's when I finally said, how do I tell my story?
Yeah.
How do I get it across, right? Yours is the 90 right beneath the surface, like getting to know that. And I was like, what's my story? And it was like God said to me, Kelly, when life hands you lemons, I'm going to make you lemonade.
I know, that's right.
Right?
That's
it's old, it is cheesy, but it was really it's it wasn't when life hands you lemons, it was God said he would make it. I don't have to make the lemonade.
No, sit back.
I just have to be open and willing and trust him and have faith that anything that bad that happened is not from him. His plans for us in our future is hope, right?
Yeah.
And for us to prosper in every area of our life. And it was like, I felt like he made a promise to me one day. I'm going to take all these lemons that somebody gave you.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Or that you've accepted from somebody, right? And we're going to make lemonade out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Together. And you're going to tell your story and people are going to heal from it.
That 90%. And again, people, we built community around our stories, right?
Yeah.
So Kelli, I don't think our listeners will not want to, I know they would want to hear a part 3.
Okay.
Right? So I think that's what I'm trying to say. They will welcome a part 3. We say 2.
Right.
But as we talked, I'm like, each
relationship has its own story.
Yeah, but we don't want to give it away. That's a 3. But we got to do a part 3.
Okay.
Right? We got to do a part 3. Who knows, a part 4. But we got to do a part 3. So again, thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I really appreciate you sharing your stories, because we know our stories it's not for us, it's for other people.
Exactly.
It really is. So thanks for joining today's episode. If you enjoyed the story time, don't forget to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and YouTube. Leave us a review and share with your friends to help us reach more listeners. Stay tuned for more insightful stories. Until next time, take care and keep exploring new connections with us.